news just moments ago. Ukrainian President Zelensky says security guarantees from the U.S. as a result of a new mineral deal could be the first step towards peace.
If we understand that the US will be one of the countries or one of the leading countries who give security guarantees, then this could be a success or the first step towards the sustainable fair peace growth of the Ukrainian economy. Or if it's just some sort of beginning without a vision for the end, we will make conclusions after my conversation with President Trump.
All right, CNN's Nick Payton Walsh is joining us now live from Kyiv. What else are you hearing from Zelensky? This sounds very transactional, but he sounds also hopeful?
Yeah, I think, look, it's clear that this is moving forwards. What we did not hear, though, is perhaps also important. We did not hear Zelensky say that final terms have been agreed with the United States. Indeed, he said he was going to have to read the document at some point, and he did not specifically say, I know the date and time of my meeting with President Donald Trump, but he certainly wants one, and he even talked about going to London after having one. So nothing to suggest that is being derailed, just not finalised. Interesting about how he talked about the document itself. Now, he talked about, how he was grateful there were lawyers out there to deal with all the complex technical elements here, but there are some very clear things he had in his mind. That the figure of $500 billion initially floated by the Trump administration that Ukraine would have to repay the United States, that wasn't in there. He said $100 billion wasn't in there either. And he also said there was a key point of principle for him, that the document could not suggest that even 10 cents of the money already given by the United States to Ukraine as grants, not loans, would be repaid. He also talked about the need for security guarantees. Now, where are we with that in the document? He suggested there was a point 10 which made reference to security guarantees for Ukraine. Now, I should point out that is not the same as giving security guarantees to Ukraine, and he didn't even suggest that there were necessarily security guarantees within this document. This has been something we understand from Ukrainian officials has been a point of resistance from the American side for some time. And so there may be, as we suggested yesterday in our reporting, that this final draft contains references that spell out more clearly security guarantees for Ukraine, but don't actually give them. They're clearly still negotiating parts of this text. It's clear he wants that meeting. Whether those two men get along well and have something meaningful to sign, probable at this point, not guaranteed. Nothing has been for the last week. Sarah?
Well, yeah, it has been very contentious with some of the things that Donald Trump has said about Zelensky. We will see what happens and if a deal indeed is made. Thank you so much, Nick Payton Walsh, there live for us. Thank you to your crew as well in Kyiv. Kate?
So with President Zelensky headed to Washington and to the White House, I want to play for you President Trump's take on it all yesterday.
I hear that he's coming on Friday. Certainly it's okay with me if he'd like to, and he would like to sign it together with me, and I understand that's a big deal, very big deal. And I think the American people, even if you look at polling, they're very happy because, Biden was throwing money around like it's cotton candy. And it's a very big deal. Look, it could be $1 trillion deal. It could be whatever.
Joining us right now is retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, a former director of European Affairs on the National Security Council, also the author of a new book out now that could not be more relevant, The Folly of Realism, How the West Deceived Itself About Russia and Betrayed Ukraine. It's really good to see you. Thank you so much. Congrats on the book. Let's jump off what we heard from President Zelensky there, what we know, and really what we don't know, which is all of the important detail of what this rare earth minerals deal could mean. Zelensky seems hopeful or just unclear. You talk about realism in your book so much. Why are security guarantees so important? Why has the Trump administration, do you think, been resistant to put that out there to this point? What do you think comes of this very important aspect of getting any negotiation done?
Sure. So first of all, it's interesting that these are two media figures. One of them is a career actor. The other one is hosted on the Apprentice, TV personality, and how much of this is playing out in the public eye. Usually these negotiations take place behind closed doors. The nuts and bolts are worked out. Not kind of the smoke and mirrors that we see right now. How much is it is real, how much of it is substance. What historically the U.S. has been resistant to is it doesn't want to be on the hook to secure Ukraine against Russian attack. Why? Because that puts the U.S. in a position where U.S. troops are on the ground. There's a chance for an escalation of war. Now, the theory is that this is the way that war starts, that U.S. provides security guarantees. The counterfactual, the more relevant data point that my research tells me in the book is that this is the one thing that forestalls Russian attack. Why? Because the Russians are not the least bit interested in a confrontation with the U.S. or with NATO. The U.S. is a much more powerful military, a much more powerful alliance. Nukes are irrelevant. Trump and Putin are, neither of them are suicidal. Neither of them want to get to this point. So providing Ukraine security guarantees is a way to forestall or end this war and prevent future wars. But we've not gone there in the past 30 plus years. I find it hard to believe that the U.S. is going to offer anything substantive yet under the Trump administration. Eventually, we need to get there. Eventually, we need to realize this promise of Ukraine in NATO, as we declared back in 2008. Just so much has to happen before we get there. The folly is that we haven't learned the lessons of the past. We keep repeating them.
That's what it is. And again, this is extremely relevant because you talk in the book about how the United States has made mistakes in its approach. And you're talking the last 6 administrations, but maybe you make the case, maybe no one making worse mistakes than Donald Trump right now. The United States has just sided with Russia by voting against the UN resolution, condemning Russian aggression in Ukraine. There is a range of opinions how relevant the United Nations is on any given day. Sure. But how big of a turn or reversal do you think that move is?
In terms of the U.S. Moral leadership in the world, it's disastrous. It's frankly one of the most public-facing changes in U.S. course that we've seen. You have a continuity in foreign policy across administrations. You might have some adjustments, but there's generally continuity. We haven't had a reverse course where we went from declaring somebody an enemy, an adversary, a dictatorship, to now embracing them.
Yeah, like sky is blue, sky is green,
yes.
is essentially what it kind of feels like.
It is a disastrous about face from that standpoint. Now, whether all this chaos could actually claw back some sort of gains, Zelensky's going to be in town in 2 days. There might be some element of substance to this deal. It's always a good thing for the U.S. to be on sides with an ally for both values. With democracies, we have share common values, but also interests. If there is a deal to be had, a fair deal where minerals are coming from Ukraine is getting the investment. It feeds our tech industry. Rare earths are extremely important for our economy. Yeah. If that could come. If that could be realized, that's a good thing. I've talked to my senior contacts in Ukraine, one of the most senior former leaders there. He said it's a good deal in that it brings the U.S. in, puts the U.S., kind of hooks the U.S. to be involved. But the numbers have to make sense. It can't be this extortion that Zelensky's rejecting for aid granted under Biden, and it has to have some sort of promise of continued support going forward. I think security assurances are a bridge too far, but continued U.S. support could be important. The question is, how do you reconcile that with what Trump has been saying and with his embrace to...
And how do you reconcile those personalities? As you said, the leaders might not get along in private and since the beginning of time, but how this animosity has been showing up in public seems like it's going to be, I don't know, tough to overcome or not. I don't know.
I think the book is frankly pretty clear in that it points to the mistakes of both Republicans and Democrats engaging with Russia and most notably with Putin for the past 25 years. And that there are lessons to be learned from these mistakes. That, thinking that you could do more with Russia or succumbing to fears actually puts you in greater risk long term. And the Trump administration has cast all of that to the side and is starting from a blank slate. Even though he had 4 years working with Putin, didn't manage to accomplish that much. I don't know how you could discount all that history. The prescription is actually to learn the lessons of the past. Some of the things I suggest in the book, figure out that our most important relationships are with our allies. They are the ones that drive our economic prosperity. They give us the strength to withstand attacks from our enemies, like they did in 9/11, after the 9/11 attacks. That's where we should be putting our efforts. That's why I advocate for this idea of neo-idealism and think that realism has been a huge folly for us for the past 6 administrations.
So interesting. It's great to see you. And congrats on the book, and thanks for the perspective. Really appreciate it. Thank you.